Hello everyone and welcome to Writing for Today. My name is Rachel and today the exercise I'm going to invite you to do with me is called community mapping, or sometimes it's called deep mapping. This is another activity that I have participated in as a writer, and I found it very valuable, so I decided to use it in my own practice as a teacher. And the first time that I was able to experience this, I was part of a summer institute with the Nebraska Writing Project. It is the first summer institute I was part of. It was one of the first writing activities, and it really provided a rich resource to return to for my work as a writer for the rest of that summer institute. And since that time, I used it every year with students. I've used it every year with students. And I see this community mapping or deep mapping as something that allows the students to really perceive how their stories are significant and how places in their lives have held significance for them. So I think it really allows students to start on that journey well of, I am a writer, I have things to write about, and I can write them because they're important to me, and that's the only criteria I need in order to choose something to write about. So the things that we will need today, so you can use a pen if you want to, you can use your regular notebook paper, you can also, let's see if I have some in here. Oh no! Oh, I do have a couple. I have at least one. Oh, this is boring. It's the black marker. So I like to do this with color. I'm not saying black is a boring color. Some people really like the color black. But it seems all my markers have been confiscated by a child that lives in this house, which is just the way my life goes. So this marker or other markers can be used as well. And when I do this with my students, I take large pieces of paper so that they have the freedom to map out their places in big ways as well. And so, you know, papers that are sometimes really large, or the butcher papers that we have, or what really works, I'll get a pad of those giant, not sticky ones because they cost money, but those giant easels, and I'll just tear off pages for students. So that's about the size that I use, and they can decide if they want to fold it or roll it or do whatever. And so you will need a piece of paper of your choosing, the things that you are comfortable using. If you believe it would help you in an activity to invite color or invite different types of utensils in, you may do that as well. Once you hear me explain it, you'll get a good picture and maybe think, I could add this in. I'm not a person that has a bunch of gel pens around. That's just never been me, but I know some of you writers really enjoy those colors in your life, so you'll probably be able to easily grab those out of your desks, unless you have small children who also steal things from you when you most need them. So we can start with a blank piece of paper, and this is, I'm gonna call it a community map, but you can choose your space and your place that you're gonna draw. So communities, when I do this with my students, I invite them to draw a map or a representation of the place where they grew up. And many of my students are still in the process of growing, aren't we all? And so I tell them to think about formative moments in their lives, or maybe memories that they can easily recall up when they were 6 or 8 or 12. I've had students who have needed to draw 2 houses because their formative years have been spent in 2 places of significance. I have students who draw streets and who draw cityscapes because that was their significant space. I have students who draw schools. I am very specific in the use of the word community rather than house, because we know that not all of our students have houses that have memories that they want to tap into, but we start talking about the word community and the spaces where we build our community. So maybe for some students that's a library, maybe for some students that's an elementary school. And I emphasize to them, this does not need to be an accurate drawing. This is about your memory and recreating a place that has memories for you. And so this drawing is a process of remembering, which memory is really cool. It's not a passive activity when our brain remembers something. It is an active process. We don't sit back and watch a film. Our brain is putting something back together again. And so through this activity of drawing, the act of drawing continues to pull up memories. So I'll have students who say, I don't really remember too much about this place. Draw it anyway and see what comes up. So I'm going to ask you to pick a place to draw out or to map out today. And it can be, again, with whatever media you would like to use. It can be as detailed as you want to use it. I'm asking you not to search for what this place should look like, but what it looks like in your memory. So this can be for if you want to make it a formative place of your growing up, you can. If you want to make it a place that was really significant to you this past year or the past 10 years, you can. If you want to draw a place that was important to you that you had to leave behind, you can do that as well. So I'm not going to give you too much modeling at this point. I'm going to ask you to pause, and you can either map out or draw out a place that is important to you. And pause this video, do that. And sometimes it's nice to give ourselves a time constraint. I'm going to see what I can get done in 10 minutes. And then come back so we don't become overwhelmed with the need to represent something a certain way. The purpose is to be part of a drawing process. So pause the video, come back in about 10 minutes with what you have, and I'll talk about where we're going to go from there. Okay, so some of you maybe drew a favorite walk or a lake. A place that maybe you return to again and again and continue to move through that space or sit in that space. I ended up pulling out one of my first community maps that I drew, and ignore the words for now. I want you just to notice a couple of things. I'm going to hold it up for just a second. Actually, I'll just hold kind of like that maybe. This is the street where I grew up, or the couple streets where I grew up in South Omaha. And the street had more than 3 houses. Streets have more than 3 houses. And this is something that I just decided to kind of draw into significant houses, the houses that I had memories of, or maybe if it was a house that was like one away from me, I drew a tiny little house in between there. So again, it doesn't have to be actually accurate. There was a community center close to where I grew up, and then a grocery store. So I kind of labeled that was off in the distance. And then I also said, okay, this is the path we went to as we walked to school each day, where I didn't draw out the whole path, but I mentioned that it's there. So that's the second thing we do with this deep mapping. The first thing that we do is we sketch it out, and it can look however, again, you want it to look. The second part is to identify places within that map or that drawing, or things within that drawing that hold significance or have a story or a memory. So go ahead and pause, and just like I did, jot down a few things, maybe label the spots if you did a map like this, or the places, maybe you drew a perspective of what you see when you're in that place, and just kind of draw little things that your mind brings up as you mapped this out, however you did that. So go ahead and label those things, pause the video, label the different spaces with memories or thoughts or whatever's coming up, and see again, what can you get done in a couple minutes? What is your brain bringing to the surface? Do that, and then I'll talk through our next step here. So some of you who are educators and are watching this video might be familiar with something called funds of identity. And I'm not going to go into that too much, but the basic idea is our students bring with them things of value in who they are. So that's just a very generic overview. These maps, or this type of mapping or drawing out of significant places, also helps us consider what are our funds of identity, or what are our structures and supports, what does our community offer us, and what are the challenges within our community. And so something that is sometimes interesting to do, and I haven't done it too much with students, but you can have them go back one more time, and maybe this is something that you can do as well with yours, and go back and identify places within your community that offer you something supportive. So it might be a person, it might be a place, it might be a moment that you think really helped build you up and support you. Then go back and highlight challenges and tensions within that space. Because a lot of the spaces we occupy give us strength and also demand strength or attention from us. And we want to honor both of those things. So you can go back through your map and again, identify where are places that really build me up in this community, what's a relationship that's really strong and supportive, and what's something that's really challenging. And sometimes this really helps me if I would map out my school, identify something that I thought, oh, this is a thing that continues to sap my energy in a certain way. I am now aware of how that repeated thing affects me. So go ahead and pause the video and consider, if you want to, this is additional, moments, things, situations, people, challenges, and supports within your community. Okay, so that's day one of our deep mapping or our community mapping. If there is something on there that is calling you to write now, then go ahead and take some time writing. But for some of you, maybe this was quite a process and took quite some time, and this is what your writing looks like for today. In my next video, I'm going to talk a little bit about how we can use this to help us consider places we can go in our writing, or consider places within ourselves that are asking to be written about. So thank you for your time today in our space of writing. If you have something that you want to write, please do so. Otherwise, consider this a time where you as a writer were able to write in maybe a way that you're not used to. This counts as writing as well for us and for our students too. So thank you for your time, and I'll see you in the next video.